Well, hello everyone and welcome to I Was a Teenage Fundamentalist. My name's Troy, one of the hosts of IWATF, and sitting next to me as usual in the virtual space, my friend, my lover, my champion, Brian McDowell.
Wow, I'm a little bit excited by that. That's a little bit pleasurable.
You remember
Troy.
that song? Brian,
Yes.
lover of my soul.
Yeah, I do. Yes. I remember, and I
Brian.
think we've spoken about this on the pod, when we used to do outreach teams, we went to a church and did an outreach, and you did Jesus, Lover of My Soul in full rock mode. Like you were headbanging, and it was great.
I had the two hands on the mic, head down, like, Jesus. Yep.
Yeah, it was for those Australians will get the reference. It was very Jimmy Barnes-esque, and I was just ready for a bottle of vodka to go up in the air in triumph at the end of that, or it would have been water that turned into wine, whatever, but close to it. But it was good. They were good memories. They were fun times.
Yeah, they were fun times. You're right.
Saving souls.
Yeah, to a point, they were fun times. Let's not banter too much, but how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. Just things this time of year, it is financial acquittals for me. So most of the business that I'm a director in, a lot of the financial stuff gets acquitted through my part of the business. So it's a very busy time. The tax man, our funders, all of that sort of stuff. We have financial audits as well this time of year. So it's always busy, and it's just making sure that we've ticked everything off to keep everyone happy, so they give us the same money for the next financial year, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well,
how about yours?
Obviously, there's no rest for the wicked. There, Brian.
No. Well,
Yeah, well, I've had a rough week. Actually, I know I've had a rough month, but I am doing okay now. I'm sort of cruising. Work, like for you, work for me is really, really busy. There's a lot of AI adoption stuff going on with big companies. So I'm working with two major energy companies at the moment. I'm also working with some smaller companies just around, finance companies and things like that around their AI adoption. But yeah, it's life, pays the bills.
Because of the different worlds that we live in, when you say AI adoption, I think that AI has been orphaned and it needs someone to care for it, someone to nurture it, someone to adopt it.
Yeah, that happened once. I was talking with someone about, I'm an adoption specialist, and they said, oh, yeah. And then I went and talked, and then they actually said, oh, okay, sorry. I thought you meant that you helped people, who can't have children find kids. And it's like, no, I don't traffic anymore.
No. Plenty of traffic in. Hey, all right.
Hey.
Special announcement. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
That's why we're
Enough
here.
banter.
I don't know what we're going to announce, though. Let's find something special to announce. What do you reckon we should announce?
Okay, yeah, well, I've got a rash.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it so many times, and I'm starting to believe that it's just a bit of red pen that you're putting there just so you can flash your knob at me.
It's actually rouge.
Oh, rouge. Sorry.
Yeah, because I like to look like I'm blushing down there.
Yes. Blushing knob.
Hey, so our announcement is we have a brand new host, not just a guest, a brand new host joining our team.
Who's that? You haven't told me about this.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I probably should. It's typical of me.
Awkward.
No, you do know. Don't pretend you don't.
I do. It is. I think you all know it. Look, you all know it as her old name, which is Sharon Madere from Feet of Clay, Confessions of the Cult Sisters, but being now a guest where the majority of hosts are Australian, welcome Shazza to the pod.
Ooh, Shazza. I like it.
You're not meant to. That you've ruined it now.
Oh, no. Is that like a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing.
It's very Australian. This is what we do with names. So generally people who
it's also very New Zealand too, Brian. I'll point that out.
It is, but they're just, offshoots of Australia. I know they love to hear that. But it's if Sharon can become Shazza, that's what we do. It's like Barry will be Baz or Bazza. People hate my name, Brian, because generally they can only say Bri. But
I was
generally,
say, what's yours? What's Troy's?
Well, we've got bad names for Australians to do those things. So, but what we'll do is if a name is too short, we also lengthen it. So Yeah. Like if
Like
someone's John, it's
Troy?
like, John-O. Or we wouldn't go Troy-O. I mean, you might,
No,
but it just
we
doesn't
wouldn't say
work.
Troyo. Actually, my father used to call me, because Troy Waller used to call me Trolley Willie, and then my brothers took it as like,
Golly
yeah,
Willie.
exact Trolley Willie, and then my brothers took it, and it became like I hated it, absolutely hated it. Yeah, but my
Oh.
daughter, her name is Hannah, right, which is Hannah with a pretentious pronunciation, but she's Hannah Banadana. That's actually what we call her, Hannah Banadana, and then her brother calls her Bunna, sometimes Dunna. That's just what we do.
Mm. Welcome to
Very
Australia.
endearing. Oh, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
a land of confusion, but this is exciting, and we did an episode with you on Feet of
Mhm.
Clay,
Yes.
where we did speak to your audience about what was happening in a bit of furlough, hiatus, whichever language you want to use. So, Sharon, do you want to talk us through what's happening in Feet of Clay and how you've ended up being the rose between the thorns here?
Oh, isn't that sweet? Sure. Yeah. So, Tracy's life has been kind of a living hell with work shit, aka Trump land and other stuff. And just life with some family stuff too. But it just got to where for her, the ability to have any kind of bandwidth, both in physical time, just the energy and the time, as well as emotional and mental space, it was just, we were just chasing so hard and trying to find the time. And finally just said, you know what? Why? I mean, we do the pod because there's stories we believe are important and we want to tell, but mostly because we like to hear ourselves talk, if we want to be honest about it. So if we're doing it mostly for us, then if it's not serving us at the moment, then we push pause. And so that's what we've done. And we may be back recording in early 26, but don't know. TBD.
Yes, well, but in the meantime, we thought,
Not to
hey,
be
you've got
confused
to.
with TBS.
I was actually going to make that reference. I thought, oh, we could TBS. As Sharon came up with this, it was Troy, Brian, Sharon, but it's tackling bullshit. I think is
Tackling bullshit.
yeah, and that's what we all try and do across our two pods. So I think it was a great little bit of symbolism. So thank you for that. But what we thought we'd do is you've got plenty to say. You've got plenty of energy in this space. You've got lots of experience. You've got lots of opinions. Let's be honest. We've all got opinions. We've all got opinions, but you've
And when
got
I
some
want
great opinions.
your opinion, I'll give it to you. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So we thought, why not? Why not come on with us and you can tell everyone your opinions on here? But also, I think what you're immersed in a world which is very different to ours at the moment.
Oh
The
God. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God, you're in the heartland of people saying that they're trying to change a country for Jesus, and for fuck's sake, they are not. So I think
Hey,
bringing that element.
she's more than that. She's in like almost the epicenter, because can I say the state that you live in? Are you okay with
Sure.
that, Sharon? Yeah,
Yeah.
Sharon
Yeah.
lives in Florida.
Fucking Florida.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
The only thing that could be worse is Texas. And I spent a lot of time there too.
Yeah, God.
Man. Yeah.
Was it Joe Rogan that moved to Texas from California or something? Something like that. For
Don't know.
freedom, and
No,
then it's
I think you're
become
mixing him
restriction.
up with Keith Green. I think it was Keith Green that moved to Texas
Yes,
from
yeah, that's
California,
right.
Brian,
Yes, and David
Oh, you
Koresh.
know what?
and
I
David
saw
Koresh.
David Koresh. If I talk about this, I might get kicked out of it, but I'm going to risk it anyway. So there is a Facebook group that is LDM Woodland Hills, like old timey people, right? And it's a small group and it's people who were there at Last Days in California. And it's hosted by a guy who was in high school and early ages, Keith's best friend. I'm not going to call him out because I don't get booted out of this thing. But they posted a photo of the old Dolorosa Street house, and it has been totally renovated. And it's been made into 2 stories, and it has like a security gate, and it's all blinged out, and like you would never recognize it. So I don't know why I got off on that, but that was California, and saw that picture last week, and I was like, wow, boy,
Was
things have changed.
Dolorosa Street the one in No Compromise in the book where then Keith and Melody start buying up the properties around the area
Mhm.
because it couldn't
Yep,
contain everyone? Yeah.
yep, yep. That's the one.
So where were they getting this money to be able to buy up these properties? I mean, had he already started breaking out as a Christian performer? Is that where the money was coming from?
Well, he had been on contract with CBS Music, I believe, CBS Records Music or
Yeah.
something like that. And I don't know what the nature of that contract was. I don't know if he was, I don't know, but he had some income stream from that. And let's see, For Him Who Has Ears to Hear was released. What year was that? Was that 77?
Yeah, I have a feeling it
78?
was 77.
Yeah,
That's the way I
yeah.
remember it. Yeah.
And that became an incredibly high-selling album. I mean, for years, for decades after his death, I believe Keith was still Sparrow Records' #1 selling Christian artist. I mean, his reach was phenomenal. So royalties, a, a lot of royalty music, and then of course donations, because it's a funny thing. We we really prided ourselves on our humility of not asking for money. It's like that's why everything was whatever you can afford. And the result of that, though, it was kind of like maybe almost like a Patreon or something else way ahead of its time, because when people believed that there was some altruism, that, wow, this stuff is available. You can get an album for free if you can't afford it, and they'll mail it to you, and you don't have to pay for shipping. The ones who could afford were very, very generous, because it's like, let's give, let's support. Now, I never had full visibility to the money. That was a couple other people. I never even was interested in it. It's like, yeah, it's taken care of. We trust God. But we we did not lack, except we didn't get a second glass of orange juice.
I was just about
You
to
Yeah.
know,
say the second glass of orange juice, which is
Yeah.
your symbol for all that, for sure.
right,
Yeah,
right.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because that whatever you can afford piece was actually something that made me go, "Oh wow, aren't these people different? Aren't these people great?" Did many people actually take advantage of the free albums, or was it really more, just the occasional, but most people were actually giving more? Was it actually a really clever, it's like the hooker that says, whatever you can afford is fine. And then, you end up giving more. I've been told. Is that what it is? Or is it,
We
did actually
definitely gave
people,
away we gave away free albums. Absolutely, we did. And a lot of people that, on the flip side, I don't what would a cassette have run in those days? Like $8, $9. On the flip side, you'd have people sending in $20 or $30. It's like, here, I want to pay for mine, plus I want to give to support and cover the costs of someone else who couldn't afford it. So it did bring out, I think, some all for one for all, or, having all things in common. It did engender that in a lot of our audience/constituency. And I think that was actually a good thing.
I don't know if they still do it now, but I took advantage of it in the 90s. I remember I got some material sent to me for free, and I honestly didn't have much. It might have even been while I was at Bible college. I can't remember, but I remember then putting cash in an envelope another time for some things.
so you saying you mailed them Australian dollars?
I did. Yep. I didn't use
I
US dollars.
remember that. We did. We would get Australian dollars. We would get Canadian dollars. We would get British pounds. We did. We did get foreign currency.
Absolutely. I wasn't going to go down and exchange it. I was just send it along. So I reckon I only did that once or twice, but I definitely did it.
Yeah, I think I never like tried to take advantage of the, CDs, albums, that kind of thing, but I did definitely write for some of the tracks. And
Yes.
I also became a subscriber to the magazine, the newsletter and that kind of thing. So I don't think I ever paid for those. But,
No.
in my mind, it was like, oh, that's just printed material. I didn't feel bad about that.
Yeah. I remember what you were saying before, Sharon, about CBS. I don't know whether it was in No Compromise or it was other stuff I read as well, that he was getting significant royalties from songs that he had written um, prior to being a Christian artist. So I think that he probably did and this is pre-Spotify where, you get 1/1,000,000th of a cent for a download. I mean, this was proper royalties if you negotiated well. So I think there was probably some cash coming in for him. So hence, there's no way you could afford all of that stuff unless you were dealing
Right.
drugs.
Well, we were dealing drugs. We were dealing mental drugs, that's for sure.
Yes.
The thing that I think is kind of weird about all this, right? Or I guess what I'm asking is, if people were offsetting the cost of, whatever you can afford for people that were asking it for free and everything, it actually, if it all ended up sort of balancing out or not, what do you think? Do you think it really
It
did
was to the
offset?
better. Oh, it was to the better.
Okay, so in that
Absolutely.
sense, he was perhaps making more money than he would have just from album sales. So why didn't you get a second glass of orange juice?
Because there was a plane to lease and a runway to build. And yeah, I mean, we were not the priority. You should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. And only the most spiritual and the most dying to self people would would make the cut to be there at Last Days. I mean, we were the elite of the elite. And it was really about how much can you grovel before God? How much can you become nothing uh, towards others? I mean, like, not have any sense of I deserve something or I'm worth something. I mean, all that's got to go away. And you need to be willing to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and not grumble and not complain. Because the moment there's any grumbling and complaining, you are out. You are out.
Yeah, no banana bread for you
No.
if you grumble and complain.
The ground opened up and had some of them for lunch, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I just, it's so different, hearing the reality as opposed to what we were seeing on the outside. Because I was so tempted to just pack up and go, even though Keith had died, years before. I really was. It was like, well, maybe I should do this. But yeah, it's funny because I didn't realize that they were quite as hardcore as they were. But of course, that all came out, much later on, and even in the book, it's sort of, Melody's book. You looked at it and sort of thought, oh. Don't know if I would have enjoyed that.
I reckon though, and maybe I'm being too graceful, but I think a lot of these things start out with good intent. I mean, if you look back at the De La Rosa Street stuff and you look at, and I think when things grow, and you see this quite often, and regardless of whether we believe the bullshit about, the reason people get into it and all that sort of thing. I mean, none of us believe in that anymore. But I think most people, when they go into it, start small like that. They have good intent. They want to help people. Then all of a sudden it grows, and then more rules and rules and rules get made.
Yes.
And then people go, "Oh fuck! Actually, my pockets are getting lined quite well," and they start to justify it by leasing planes, by building airstrips, by restricting orange juice, all of that sort of stuff that happens. I think is creep. It creeps in. People don't start off with that intent. I mean, I think humans are better than that, all in all.
I think in the beginning, you know,
Oh, now
in
she's gone to scripture.
not that far back,
Oh,
70s, mid 70s, uh, the whole Jesus People movement that was happening in Southern California, Keith was part of it. That was what Last Days was. at the outset. There was this sense of we're looking for brotherly love. We're looking for helping the least of these. Those who are downtrodden, the homeless, the drug addict, the single mother. It was coming out of also the anti-war sentiments from the 60s. We're coming out of Vietnam, down with institutions, down with government, and the church, the established church, was seen as one of those institutions as well, like irrelevant, like out of touch, not having anything for the real people. And so this was also the time of, the musical Hair. So we were kind of hippies. We really were, where, we're jeans and we're barefoot and we're
Yeah, I
not
don't think you were kind
traditional.
of hippies. I think you were hippies, weren't you? I mean, that was the reality. That's the way I always saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was this sense of everybody pitching in for everyone else. Sell all you have and give to the poor. Have things. I mean, people sold their stuff and gave money to the ministry. And when it was in Dolorosa or in Woodland Hills with the Dolorosa Street and the other houses there, I don't think there was a ton of money going on. I think it was still very early on in Keith's career. Certainly he got enough funds to be able to buy the land in Texas, but we would go to grocery stores and go to the back to the produce area where everything was going to get thrown out because it's, awful and moldy and rotting and stuff. And we'd sift through that to cook and, cook meals for 80 plus people. And that was also a thing where we'd have these quote potluck dinners, but most people didn't bring things. We did the cooking. And they would be for Bible studies and worship times and people coming in and sitting in the backyard and in the living room, just every square inch of carpet and every sofa and couch, people sitting on the backs, people sitting on the cushions, Keith playing his guitar, us singing and praying and reading the Bible. And it was the hippie Jesus movement. That's what it was. And it morphed. After we got to Texas, it became a business. It really did. Although we wouldn't call it that, that's what it became.
And this conservatism crept in as well. Do you know what I
Oh my
mean?
God. Well, Keith was not that strong on politics, and he would never have been someone who would have tolerated Trump or venerated him. And I mean, Keith just never would have done that, ever, 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 ever. He was definitely anti-abortion. And, that kind of thing started. I think that probably happened maybe when they had their first child. And then it became kind of a thing about how could this even be? And they kind of went down that road. Melody is the one who was really into the politics of it. Because I think for her, the ego aspect of hobnobbing with famous people in power, there was a vicarious need in her to be close to that, to have some sort of validation of her own worth or her own whatever. And the whole fucking Jerry Falwell, moral majority, religious right. Oh my God, then again, that remember was happening a little later in the 80s, mid 80s, and Keith died in 82. But yeah, our machine started grinding in that direction, and we didn't just participate, we perpetrated some really bad shit and helped lay the foundations for what it is today. And it's so far from what the original idyllic, idealistic, naive, and delusional Jesus people movement thing was. Very far from it.
I remember hearing people in church saying, and you know who it was, Brian? It was Jim McMillan said to me once, he said, he was our youth pastor, by the way, Sharon, and he said once, yesterday's radicals are tomorrow's conservatives. That's actually what he said. And that's kind of stuck with me because you see people, they can be really, you know, counterculture at one point and then grow. And I think that's what happened to the Jesus People movement, because I can even
Yes.
remember the audio version, which is Melody read the audio version of No Compromise. And I remember her, because, Australia, we're just not nationalistic like the US are. And she said, people were demonstrating. She said, somebody even burnt an American flag. And I remember listening to that going, what, so? Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Right.
Because they're just, first of all, we're not American. And second of all, well, who cares? Just a piece of cloth. But to an American audience, to burn an American flag, oh my God, but it just shows that they had become, this nationalism had crept in, even in the 80s or the 90s when she's publishing this book.
Yeah. And YWAM had a lot to do with that too. Their whole Seven Mountains mandate shit. I mean, and you have young and vulnerable people, teenagers, young adults, college age who don't go to college because you don't do that, who are wanting to make a difference and who don't have critical thinking skills, truthfully, don't, and are being told by leadership that this is what God wants. And then you have not just that generation of YWAMers and leaders that go out and have influence amongst the whole, the nationwide evangelical Christians, but now they're raising their children and the whole Joshua generation shit. I mean, it's just, I think the U.S. is headed for, I want to say a theocracy, but it's really ridiculous to think about that because it's Donald Trump at the helm, and he's no theologian, but he's being empowered by people who want an authoritarian theocracy. That is what they want. And yeah.
It fascinates me from a distance to watch what's happening, because the way I'm seeing it is that Donald Trump is creating the chaos and the uncertainty, and then comes in as the person who can save you from the chaos and uncertainty. And people aren't connecting the two, that he's creating it and then he's saving people from it. And it seems that straightforward. Maybe I'm being over simplistic in what I'm seeing. That's what it fucking looks like. And it's just like, how are people falling for it? And then you think about, like, cast your mind back to the Keith Green and the whole LDM transition into more conservatism. Once you start to ride that wave and go, actually, there's more people behind us. So all of a sudden that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And no one looks back and goes, how the fuck did we get here? Because you don't care, because it's become populist. So all of a sudden you're there, and it doesn't matter how you got there. And it seems to be that's what's happening on a much larger scale with 300 odd million people in the US. It's just, it's crazy.
It becomes about numbers after a point, and it becomes too big to fail or whatever, and so you don't turn around and look at it and go, oh my God, we're, like Sharon, you were saying, it's just so far removed from what we originally planned. And as we record this, the whole Epstein files thing is going nuts over in the US right now, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I'm watching to see, are they going to forgive him? Are they going to let this go, or are they not?
Of course they are. Of course they are. And I want to rewind. I just want to make sure that I'm really being clear on one thing. I do not think Keith would have gotten into nationalism. I don't recall any sentiment of that whatsoever before he died. That was Melody. That was Melody, not Keith. And I read something recently, kind of an op-ed sort of thing about Trump. And it was this like, how did we get here? How did he get elected? How is it even possible? And someone was saying, if he had been really this horrible person on just a couple of fronts, on a couple of topics, he would not have gotten elected. If he was just this horrible, horrible misogynist, / rapist, if that's all that his problem was, he would not have, there would be enough people that would go, no way, I don't want this guy. If he was just a racist, then there would be people who would be looking for an alternative. But the fact is that I think what did this piece say? It's like,
I know the piece you're talking about. It said
if
he
you're-
appeals to the worst in so many people.
so many options, so many ways. If you're a racist, he's your man. If you're a pedophile / hebephile, he's your man. If you hate immigrants, he's your man, et cetera, et cetera. And that's,
If you're a
I think, how we
misogynist,
got
he's
here.
your man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of misogynist,
don't
I'm
name
sorry.
us here.
No, I was wondering, I just wanted you to know that I do see your higher status. Not that you are misogynist, but I am being careful to be appropriately demure, perhaps. I do have a head covering. You haven't commented.
Because it looked like a pair of tits, but
Well,
it's actually eyes.
I thought it was
tits
Elmo.
or
It's
eyes?
Elmo, isn't it? Isn't it Elmo?
Well, it's just a scrunchie, but they do look like, you know what? I have one
It
that
looks
is
like a Muppet.
actually flesh covered, not covered, flesh colored or tan.
Yeah, I was going
And
to
I
say,
wore
it puts
that
the
one
lotion
time,
on the
like,
skin
it
down in
does
Florida, does it, Sharon? If it's flesh
It looks
covered.
like tits. Anyway, all right. Sorry, I jumped over.
So Sharon has a flesh suit that she's obviously stripped from someone. And as I was saying a moment ago, it puts the lotion on the skin.
Yes.
It puts the
loves
lotion in
Chianti.
the skin and then puts it in the basket. That was a great movie. That was a great movie.
It was a great movie. Still is.
For the
But,
young people who don't know the movie, Silence of the Lambs. Great movie.
You shouldn't have given it away. Could have been a quiz question. So no, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. No one likes quizzes except me. But with the Trump thing, right? And I'm not going to go on too much about it. Troy knows how much I am fascinated by this
go
world.
for it.
But it's bigger than Trump. Like what's happening there is bigger than Trump.
Yeah.
I think that Trump could be dethroned. He could be assassinated. Whatever could happen tomorrow, it's bigger than me. This is mega.
Please, can we all pray? Sorry.
But I think someone worse would rise up. I really do. I think all you people behind him, like J.D. Vance, like fucking Steve Bannon, all of those people, I think they're almost worse because I think he's a bit of a puppet from what I can gather. I think he's been used to get there because he's a tool. Well, he is a tool, but he embodies all of that shit that we were just talking about.
I don't know, Brian. I know what you're saying, and he's definitely there. There's people that are hitching their wagons to his train, and they are manipulating him through his ego and things like that for sure. But he himself does have a phenomenal amount of power.
Absolutely.
And I read an article in the New York Times recently saying, is Trump the most powerful president, that we've had?
Yep. I think so. The Supreme Court is fucking rolling over for him. Congress is rolling over for him. I mean, they're doing all they can to crown him king. They really are. And, when he's gone, if he's gone, right? Will they keep him on life support and try for a third term? I don't know that anyone else has the absolute most awful character to be able to pull it off. If it is true that the reason he's in power is because he touches the hearts of the worst of so many different types. If that is true, I'm no fan of Mark Rubio, but I mean, he's not Trump. And Ted Cruz, I kind of get a little nauseated when I think about him, but he's not Trump. JD Vance, I've actually kind of tuned out. I do not watch the news. I have not watched the news since 1 week before the election. I do not watch it. I don't watch local. I don't watch any news. I can't. I only a few months ago began to start reading any articles, and even then I'm just skimming. It is so distressing. It is so overwhelmingly traumatic, truly, to think that this is where we are in this country, that enough of my fellow citizens could have said that this guy is what they want. It's unfathomable. And I think about, I think the parallels to Germany and the Nazis and Hitler, in some way that's way too extreme. But in other ways, no, it's not. I mean, they're rounding up, they had agents going to one of the local high schools, hauling teenagers out, just hauling them out, traumatizing everybody.
Sharon, on that, when we had April LaJoy on the podcast and we were talking about, rounding people up, etc., we had people push back in the Facebook group saying, "Oh, that's a bit extreme. That's a bit extreme."
No, it's not.
Because we were talking about, trans people and this kind of stuff. But it is really happening with migrants. And so too, like we look at Nazi Germany and people say, as soon as you bring Hitler in, you've lost the argument, because you're taking it to an extreme. But let's be real. They are rounding people up. They're now building a concentration camp just around the corner from your house, right?
Mhm.
This stuff is really happening. And it didn't start in Germany with Auschwitz. It ended with Auschwitz, but it didn't start with Auschwitz. And I'm not sitting here saying that it's going to end up with Auschwitz, right? But I am saying that it started small in Germany, and it's starting. It's bigger now here. In the US than it was in Germany at the start.
This idea too that now empathy, the evangelicals that are saying empathy is a sin, and decency and compassion. And because I do remember reading this one headline a few days ago that the Supreme Court has now okayed deportation to a third country. So they've got, I can't remember now, it was, I think it was a couple guys from somewhere in South America, maybe one from Cuba, and they're sending them to a country in Southern Africa. They are going to drop these human beings off in a foreign country on another continent. I mean, how is that anything other than absolutely inhumane? And how evangelicals, I'm like, I used to laugh at the WWJD bracelets. What would Jesus do? It's like, would Jesus do that? Would he do that? And then, I'm sorry, you get me going. The fucking 10 Commandments now being put by law in classrooms, but not the Beatitudes. Not the Beatitudes.
Sharon, Australia did this not long ago. So we had this, Stop the Boats campaign, which was started by a Prime Minister, John Howard, back in the 90s. And, it made worldwide news where a captain of a ship picked up a bunch of people who were refugees seeking asylum in Australia. I can't remember the name of the ship. It'll come to me. But they took them on board, and it ended up as a standoff. And the Australian Navy kept them out at sea and said that they wouldn't enter the country. And this then started many years of the Stop the Boats campaign, where both major parties got on board with that, pardon the pun. But what ended up happening was all these laws were made saying that these refugees would never, ever set foot on Australian soil. So we outsourced our detention to countries like Nauru, Manus Island off Papua New Guinea, and we sent them there. And that was a third country. So they were seeking asylum from,
so you can blame us for that one, because the UK are even looking at copying that now.
Yeah, and it's a horrendous
And at the
policy.
time, remember, everyone was saying how terrible it was internationally. It was being condemned, etc., by countries like the UK and the US. And now you guys are actually following our lead. So as much as we hate to admit it, that started with us.
We did do it. And what I want to circle back to what I started the conversation before about, I think this is bigger than Trump. And the reason I think that is because you guys are embedding it systemically. So
Yes.
Trump could fall over tomorrow. And I think systemically there's enough of it embedded for that to keep going and potentially get worse because it's got the backing. And the more and more, I mean, look, he hasn't even finished the first year of his first
I know.
of
I
this term.
know.
So you guys have got, quite a road ahead. How much can he embed over the next 4 years? He will become redundant in the machine that is being created.
Yeah. You are right. You are right. It's getting embedded in our systems nationally, statewide, locally, all of it. It is getting embedded. When I feel like I'm tipping over into despair, one of the things that I make myself go back and remember, um, knowing that it's going to get worse. These next 3 years, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get fixed. But, you know, 150-ish years ago, slavery was legal in the United States. And a horrible, horrible, bloody war was waged in order to end it. Now, literal slavery ended, but racism and oppression and horrific shit continued to happen. And then, the civil rights movement in the 50s and culminating in the 60s really made changes. But it took years, it took decades, it took deaths. And I hate to say that, but it took deaths. And even back in the earlier in the 1900s, women, we weren't allowed to vote. We couldn't own property. We couldn't even have a bank account, So there have been times in our country where there's been a lot of really, really bad stuff. And back in the 70s, it was illegal to be gay and no gay marriage. So there have been systemic improvements. Sometimes I think, is it 2 steps forward, 3 steps back? What's going to happen here? But when I get to where I just feel so depressed and despairing, that's what I go back and I think about. And I think about the leaders of the civil rights movement and all that they faced and all that they fought against. And their odds were worse than ours, than, if you want to call us progressive, reasonable, compassionate Americans. Their odds were worse. And they ultimately prevailed to an extent. There's still more work to do. And I'm rambling, guys, but that's what I have to do. I have to go back and remember those things.
So guys, this has sort of been brewing in me for a little while listening to you speak. I did a lot of research into cults some year, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And it was something that I really, I don't know, immersed myself in. I even got myself a degree researching cults. And one of the things that I saw with a lot of these groups is you have that first leader, that charismatic, like the Mormons had Joseph Smith, and then, the Jehovah's Witnesses had Charles Tails Russell or whatever his name was. What happens after that leader dies, steps down, gets ejected, etc., is crucial to what is going to happen to the group. So listen to you both talking about Trump, etc. Now, it wasn't Joseph Smith that turned the Mormons into what the Mormons are today. It was Brigham Young. Brigham Young was the one who actually, and he wasn't the charismatic leader. He was the pragmatist, right? Like, Brian, what you're talking about, sort of like the Steve Bannon style character that knows how to organize, etc. So it really is going to depend on who steps in after Trump as to where this is going to go. because it oftentimes, and I can just say this, anecdotally from what I've studied in terms of cults, is it's oftentimes the second player that determines where the group goes. Now, you think about your own experience, Sharon. When Keith died, Melody took over, but she didn't have the ABCD to really take it forward, and it all sort of crumbled and dissipated and disappeared, and you all left and you're all disillusioned, etc. That's what happens with some cults. But what happens with other cults is that the 2IC, second in charge, takes it, runs with it, makes it even bigger, and they're not always charismatic. They've basically taken the system and they learn how to manage the system and grow it on. So that's what's going to be interesting to see, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so it may not be a JD Vance, right? It may be a Steve
No.
Bannon style character.
What I am encouraged by, though, I hate seeing what the US is going through, but I've seen a reaction to it. And I know I've spoken about this before on the pod before, but I've seen a global reaction where the world was heading that way, of, voting in deep conservatism, far right. And we've seen many countries, including Australia, turn away from that when they've seen what Trump is doing, what they've seen the impact of bringing someone in with such extreme views does. So we're seeing that even in Europe, and I think there is some hope, and potentially that can infiltrate some of the thinking in the US, but I think it's a long road back. But in the same way, also, I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but thank God for Elon in some ways, because him and Trump having that fallout, he's gonna throw every spare cent he has into trying to create a third party, which will probably fail. However, some of that messaging might infiltrate that space.
It'll be a
Some of
Ross
it may
Perot
temper
moment,
it.
is what it'll be. Remember Ross Perot?
Yeah.
It'll split the Conservative vote, hopefully just enough to give the
Hopefully.
progressives a step in.
You know what's ironic is when I think about what's it going to take for the majority of Americans to rise up and say, no, 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 no more. I actually think it's going to become economic. The disparity that we're seeing in our housing prices, in the cost of living and groceries, it's crazy. It's crazy. And that little meme that goes around of like, yeah, where it is, like however many, like half a dozen billionaires own, have how much wealth, more than all the rest combined. But yeah, the mother on food stamps, she's the problem. At some point, I think it's just going to have to get so bad when people are realizing, my kids can't afford to buy houses. Nobody's going to have a house. We're backliving with our parents. You can't afford to send your kid to college. You can barely afford groceries. More and more people are falling further and further behind economically. And someday there will be a leader who can rally the masses in the same way that, the whole thing of unionizing when, the big industrialists were raping and pillaging America. It may take that. It may be a financial revolution that in the end moves us more towards socialism. That's pretty radical to think about, but it might.
So I know 3 people that have gone to the States in the last 6 months, who were there only a couple of years ago and have reflected the inflation, and they cannot believe it. So a good example for Australians, because we love our coffee, is that here, US dollars at Starbucks, you would pay $4 US for a large coffee. It's $12 in the States, US.
Wow.
So 20 Australian dollars for something in the US that is 7 Australian dollars here. And they were saying that was just small things. They go to the supermarket and they were literally saying things had doubled in price.
Yes.
Literally doubled. Like here we've been hit with inflation. I think globally it's been an issue post-COVID. But
Sure.
the States, and how long is it before people start to switch on? Because people are going, well, it's not Trump. That was Biden. It was Biden that did this, not Trump. So how long before people go, actually, he hasn't fixed. Eggs are still expensive. How long before people actually switch on? I mean, because it's stupidity if you don't.
Have you seen the bit of this compilation of him talking about groceries, his whole
Yes.
groceries bit.
Yeah, it's great. It's his shopping list.
It's the
So,
groceries, man. Yeah. I mean, I was at the store today, and I will tell you, I don't have a coffee addiction, but I do have a Coke Zero addiction. That's my morning cold caffeine. And a 12 pack was $8. And I remember paying $3.50 and it was $8.
you could buy better Coke for that.
You're right.
Guys, I'm just looking at our time and thinking, this was going to be a short bonus episode. So let's come back to talking about what's going to happen. I really like the idea that Sharon's here. I mean, already we're able to talk about topics with an input that's not only based in America, but based in a different experience, etc. I'm really looking forward to Sharon helping us steer the pod as well with topics that she finds interesting. So rather than just, Brian and Troy's ideas, it's now Sharon's ideas as well. So that's in terms of topics and things we're going to pursue, guests that we're going to bring in, or we're going to attempt to bring in anyway, but also Sharon's voice in these kinds of episodes is really, really cool. So I'm very excited, Sharon. I really am, about having you on here. I think
Me
another thing
too.
that we talked about is sometimes it's going to be the three of us. Sometimes it's just
Mhm,
going to be two of us, right? Where,
mhm.
it might
That's
just
right.
make more sense for it to be Brian and Sharon interviewing, or Troy and Brian, or Troy and Sharon, whatever. So we're going to mix it up like that as well. But I think most of the time it's probably going to be all three of us. I don't know. Thoughts,
Yeah,
guys?
I like it.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And for those, I don't know, I wouldn't imagine there's many, but for those who don't know Sharon's story, you would have heard that we've just spoken a fair bit about Last Days Ministries and Keith. Go back to the episode, which will be in the show notes. Is Keith Green Arranged My Teenage Marriage, and that is Sharon's story. And we've had Sharon and Tracy on the pod a couple of times since, but go back, listen to that story, and that'll give you some context if you're not familiar with who Sharon is and her story. But I'm just super excited for us to have these conversations that we do tackle the bullshit. I mean, that's what we need to continue to do, but also bring in people of relevance, bring in people. I think I mentioned this when you interviewed Troy and I, where we had a conversation on your pod to announce this, Sharon,
You
was
mean your pod? You mean it became your pod,
yeah.
Brian, let's be
Sorry, yeah.
clear.
I do have a bad habit of that sometimes in meetings too. I take over the chair. If it's not moving fast enough or moving in the direction I want to take it, people will go, "Oh, Brian's the chair." So I think some of the conversations that we started in there about bringing particular guests on, but the one that I look forward to is that we'll get in contact with Frank Schaefer, and I'd really love to hear
Oh,
you and Frank
yes.
riff, because particularly talking it about it being an extended episode essentially of what the conversation we started today of what is going on, because Frank has wound it up to 110.
Mhm.
Like, he is tackling this bullshit like he never has before, and I'm loving it. I subscribe to his Substack, and I listen to some of the stuff that he's putting out now, and I'm like, go Frank.
One other really important thing, very, very important thing is, what about our merchandise? We floated some
Yes.
ideas. We floated some ideas. And wait, here's what I think we should do. I think we had 3 different design concepts, everything from the unholy trinity to Troy, Brian, Sharon, TBS. For the younger audience, you may not get the reference. TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network, with Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. That was a big thing, TBN. So we're TBS, right? And then the other one was we've got Synergy. So I say we nail down those designs, and maybe we offer them all, maybe we don't, but we at least put them in the group. We put them on the Facebook group and we let people vote, and we see which is first, second, third.
Sharon, you have access to put those in the group, so you can put those in
Okay.
the group, put it to the vote, ask people. We might after we drop the episode, so they get what it is. But I
Of
think that'd
course,
be
of
good.
course.
Get people to vote, and they
Okay,
can be.
I'll be working on it. I'll be working
Uh,
on it.
That does sound like a lot of fun. But I look forward to tackling some of the more of the hardcore bullshit that we are seeing, but also bringing some hope to people, because we don't want to just have it as something that we're like, fuck, there is no end to this.
Right.
Because I think
right.
there is some great stuff happening in the world, and I think it is difficult when you are seeing the worst, and for you living the worst of the worst, unfortunately. But there is a lot of good stuff happening, and we want to highlight that as well and bring people in that can talk about their experience and their stories about how they are actually rising above this, not in Jesus' name.
Very good.
All right, guys. Well, good first episode for the three of us. And we'll see everyone in 14 days.
14 days. That's a fortnight. If you'd like to connect with the I Was a Teenage Fundamentalist podcast, then please see the links in our link tree in the show notes. We invite you to join our listener community on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram, X, and Reddit. Check out our merch on Redbubble. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and all kinds of great evangelical stuff that you can wear proudly. All proceeds go to building and promoting the podcast. We want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Subscribers get a range of benefits, including free merch, early access to episodes, access to our exclusive subscribers group, and monthly bonus content. Again, all proceeds of this go to the running and promotion costs of the podcast. A special thanks to Ava, who manages our social strategy, and also to Kerry and Bree, who manage our Facebook listener group, and also to Bree, who puts out our monthly newsletter on Substack. All of our episodes are transcribed by Leanne to increase accessibility. The show is produced and hosted by Brian McDowell and Troy Waller. The sound engineering for this episode was done by Jonathan O'Brien. I Was a Teenage Fundamentalist is available wherever you find your podcasts. Again, you can find all our links in our link tree in the show notes. Or why don't you pop across to our website at www.iwasateenagefundamentalist.com.